fought and shed blood for our freedom. President Uhuru Kenyatta is among those expected to preside over today's event. It is a big day for Kenya, but also a big day in terms of the way forward for this country. 6 days to the date set for the repeat presidential election come Thursday next week, October 26th. What will happen? Yes, good morning and welcome to Citizen Extra. This is the Mashujaa Day special. My name is Fred Indemuli, taking you through the events today as we celebrate Mashujaa Day, a big day for Kenya either way, whichever way you decide to look at it. In studio today, we will have some guests. We do have Nerima Wako and Mary Kamau, political analyst. We'll also have some other 3 guests. I'll introduce them once they come, once they get to studio. But before that, let's get some updates from our reporters across the country. Let's start with Nyeri. Martin Munene is there. A very good morning to you, Martin. What's happening in Nyeri today as we celebrate Mashujaa Day?
A very good morning to you, Fred Indimuli, and like you said, you're getting us live from Nyeri County, and where I'm standing is at Kamkunji grounds, where we expect the Mashujaa celebrations to take place, with the regional and the county commissioner expected to be here, and also maybe the governor and a host of other political players in the county to be here. And as you can see, maybe behind me, preparations are actually going on. Right behind me is one tent that is reserved for the Mau freedom fighters, just right behind me, and as you can see, we can see that a few of them have come, and we expect them to come, knowing that Nyeri County is one of the places that was there was extremely heavy fighting during the Mau Mau war. In fact, Dedan Kimathi hails from one of the constituencies in this county, and so we expect that we're going to see a lot of them in this place and also across the county in the constituency level, where we also expect to be having celebrations. And on the right, we see security operators just putting the final touches to ensure that everything in this field and in this ground is okay and is good to go. But as it is right now, the preparations are ongoing. The celebrations are yet to start, but they expected to start anytime, maybe at around 9. But as it is right now, we are seeing people coming. We are seeing the Mau Mau freedom fighters coming, but we're also seeing especially leadership of the county coming in, and the security operators are on, actually inspecting the place and making sure that things are in order. And like you said, we expect that there's going not only to be about the Mashujaa Day. We expect that the political class to talk about the elections that are scheduled for Thursday, knowing that a lot of people in this county have insisted that we must have an election. Local leaders have actually come out and spoken and say that as it is, the commissioners, as they are able to conduct a credible election, and if even more resign, then we should still have an election. So we expect a lot of that in this ground a little bit later. Back to you, Fred Indemuli, and that is how things are as it is right now in Nyeri County.
Thank you, Martin. Martin Munene there, reporting live from Nyeri County, from that stadium where the celebrations are expected to take place from that county. Remember, the main celebrations are happening here in Nairobi. Let's get an update from Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County. John Wanyama, our reporter there. Good morning, John. What's happening where you are?
A very good morning in the Muli, and here in Uasin Gishu County, specifically where I am in Eldoret town. We are also expecting these celebrations to be happening here at 64 Stadium, and of course other 6 sub-counties here. And the message of today, as you know, the governor and maybe the county commissioner are the ones who will be addressing residents in this particular region, plus other leaders who are around here who have come also to ensure that they celebrate this Mashujaa Day. There are those first-time leaders who are also going to have and enjoy maybe this first Mashujaa Day in this country. With me in the Muli is Uasin Gishu Senator Professor Kamal, whom we would like to talk to, maybe to tell us, Mheshimiwa, what have you planned? If you can come close to me here.
Thank you.
What is your message to Kenyans during this Mashujaa Day?
Thank you. I want to wish Kenyans a happy Mashujaa Day. This is a day that is very important in the life of Kenyans. This is where the story of Kenyan independence started from. And this is a time when Kenyans should reflect back at where we came from and where we are going. And I really want to tell Kenyans that this day is very significant for us. And even as we reflect, we need to ask ourselves, today, where are we and what is going on? The situation in Kenya in this Mashujaa Day is different from any other that we have had. And it is very important to note that we are in a situation that is very, very uncomfortable for Kenyans. And we as leaders must take recognition of the fact that this has never happened, and we must give comfort to Kenyans. As I wish Kenyans well on this day, I would really like to encourage Kenyans that elections is not the end to itself, and it's not an end to anybody's life. We have had elections faithfully every 5 years since independence, and we have had Mashujaa Day every year since we got Madaraka Day. I would like to first talk to the Kenyans before to talk to the leaders of Kenya before I talk to the Kenyans themselves. And I want to encourage leaders that Kenya is bigger than all of us. The situation we are in is not comfortable. Businesses have gone down. Investors are not comfortable. I was privileged last week to have been in a delegation of 3 that went to the ACP EU Joint Parliamentary Assembly, and there were many questions that came out on the situation of Kenya. I did happen to answer one, and the leader of delegation answered a number. And the question that the international community is asking is, how comfortable are we that Kenya is going the right direction? And we did assure them that, of course, Kenya believes in the rule of law, and that is very encouraging, that Kenya believes in the constitution, and that it is for that reason that our head of state accepted the results and the verdict of the Supreme Court. This is very important for us as a country, and I really want to congratulate the president for doing that. So for that reason, in fact, 2 hours after the announcement, I did inform them that 2 hours after the announcement, we saw the president and the deputy going out for campaigns. This was very comforting to the nation, and I think we really passed that step very well. Now, the remaining step, which leaders must take recognition of, is the election of 26th, because the verdict favored the opposition that they had requested for a verdict from the Supreme Court. It is really highly expected that they will also respect the next processes that were given by the Supreme Court. And I would like to encourage them as leaders that they should take leadership and move forward, because it is very important that this country moves on, and that we stop signals of discouragement, because signals of discouragement to investors means we are killing the country slowly by slowly. And we may not realize that even the mama mbogas are not selling as much as they were selling. Why? Fear instills something in a human being, and they are not able to operate as usual. Though I'm going to tell the Kenyan citizens that they should work hard as usual, and they should ensure that their activities are running as usual, it is very difficult for them to behave as usual, because one disadvantage that the Kenyans are in right now is that the election mood has not ended. And when the election mood doesn't end, it means nothing really takes off. Even for us as leaders, we have not managed to go home for development activities. I'm very happy that I'm going to celebrate Mashujaa Day with the people of Uasin Gishu today, but that is as far as it can go. We cannot do any development. Any programs that I had arranged, I have only managed to have a meeting with my women MCAs, a leadership meeting that I had been wanting to do initially, but it couldn't. So I want to encourage Kenyans that we actually go for elections and encourage the leaders to talk to one another. It is very important that our leaders talk to one another so that we pass this hurdle and do elections as the Supreme Court had passed on the 22nd.
Thank you very much, Indimuli. That's a strong message from Professor Kamar. With me again, Indimuli, is Nandi, Senator. Mheshimiwa, your message to Kenyans as we go to this Mashujaa Day.
First of all, thank you. I want to take this opportunity to wish well all Kenyans of all walks, and it is important. This day is very important for all of us because this is the time that we celebrate our heroes, and this is the time we look back as a country. I want to ask Kenyans, let us reflect back, let us look where we are, let us take stock and move forward so that I know this Shujaa comes at a day when there is we are headed to the general election, the repeat presidential election, fresh presidential elections on 26th of October, I think next Thursday. And therefore, I want to ask all Kenyans, let us think about it, let us come out and exercise our democratic right as per Article 38 of the Constitution. And I know it is worth noting that the Constitution we have is one of the reasons we should celebrate the milestone of democratic gains that we have in this country. And I therefore want to urge Kenyans that as we go to this general election, presidential, fresh presidential elections, let us do so peacefully. Let us exercise our democratic right. Let us know that Kenya is much more bigger than all of us. And I think this is the time also that our top leadership, both from Jubilee and NASA, let us call on our Kenyans to maintain peace. Let us know that we don't have any spare country. This is our country. And therefore, even as we allow the processes that are like IEBC and the judiciary to do their work, we hope that our leaders and us on our Jubilee, because I can strongly vouch for Jubilee. Yesterday we were the president in Nandi County, and our message is clear as we go to the polls. Let us maintain peace so that we can have a nation. And therefore, in democracy, winners will always be there, losers will always, but that should not be the end, because we want to consolidate the gains that we have had. I want to urge especially the young people, the youth, let us stop being misused, especially to go into violence, because this country is our gift. This is the posterity that we must have as young people. Therefore, I want to urge young people, because whenever demonstrations are called, whenever violence is there, mostly the people who are greatly affected are women and young people. Let me ask my fellow youth, let us stop this. Let us vote on that day. Go back to your house and do what you have to do. But also, I know NASA leaders have called upon their need to boycott. Therefore, just if you have to boycott it, you have freedom either to participate or not, as per Article 38. It is your choice. But let us not use violence. Let us not say there is no election. No one can stop election. And therefore, we want to finally to say that when the Supreme Court, in accordance with Article 140, it said within 60 days, a fresh presidential elections must be done. And therefore, when we hear some section of the people went to court, especially our brothers from NASA, when they went to court and said this petition, this presidential election should be repeated, we expected them to represent. But when you say there is no election, it means you are a contempt of court. And we are watching Supreme Court and even judiciary, because we are aware there is a wider scheme to sabotage electoral process, so that if elections fail, they want to rush to court for invalidation of such an election. And therefore, I think we are saying there is no, you cannot benefit from an illegality. And therefore, as Jubilee, we are going to maintain peace. We are going to come out in larger numbers and vote for Uhuru Kenyatta. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you very much, Indimuli. Those are very strong messages from these two leaders here, and clearly you can hear them advocating for peace, nothing but peace, and calling on young people to come together as a one nation. This country has been built for several years, and today is the day for soul searching for all leaders and for all Kenyans. Indimuli.
Thank you, John. And yes, indeed, as you put it, it is a day for soul searching. Kenya at crossroads, 6 days to the date set for the repeat presidential poll. Let's get an update from Kisumu now. Laura Otieno, a very good morning. What's happening in Kisumu? Is it the same as Eldoret and Nyeri? Laura, if you can hear me, what's happening in Kisumu this morning?
Well, a very good morning to you, Fred, and we are here in county number 42, the county of Kisumu, and today being a Mashujaa Day, of course, we are expecting that the celebrations will be going down in Nyakach, Fred. And what we understand, as you can see behind me, there's some of the preparations that were made yesterday by the county government, basically trying to paint the county rather in a patriotic theme. But we understand that the Mashujaa Day celebrations have been taken to Nyakach. Of course, we're trying to get in touch with the county commissioner, maybe if she can give us reasons as to why the celebrations are not commemorated at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, rather the Jomo Kenyatta grounds, where that's normally where the most public holidays go down. Of course, now we'll be moving to Nyakach later on to be following up those celebrations, and of course to see some of the issues that will be addressed, whether they'll be addressing the issue of security, which has been quite top of the list, of course, considering the happenings in the past week here in Kisumu County. We had IBC meetings being stormed, and we had the regional commissioner bringing out a very powerful stance, saying that they'll be doing their best to ensure that IBC meetings and IBC trainings and IBC functions are carried out here in this county without compromise. They say that they'll be dealing with anybody. So of course those are some of the issues we'll be looking into. We're not yet sure. We're trying to get in touch with the governor's team just to understand whether the governor will be going there. But what we know is that at 2 p.m. the governor will be in attendance of the NASA rally that's expected to be kicking off in this town later on in the afternoon. But right now here, of course, it's some sort of holiday mode here in the Central Business District. We're not seeing too many people here today, not so much traffic. Of course, people are on holiday, but of course we'll be moving to Nyakach. Of course, we are expecting that is where the action would be later on, Fred.
Thank you, Laura. Laura Otieno with an update from Kisumu County today with regard to preparations for Mashujaa Day celebrations, as well as the NASA rally, which takes place in that county this afternoon. Back in studio with my guests this morning, Nerima Wako and Mary Mwangi, political analysts. Good morning, ladies. It's rare that I only have ladies on the panel. It is a beautiful Mashujaa Day. It's good to have a change, a difference. Men have been discussing these issues for a long time. And yes, it is Mashujaa Day. What message do you have for Kenya, Nerima? It is, you understand where we are.
Goodness, you see your questions.
Yeah, I know they can be vague at times.
The message that I have for Kenyans basically is remembering the importance of this day, and I guess going back to nationhood and patriotism and understanding the diversity within us and loving that diversity. I think that's something where we've been very divisive lately, and even when you try and have conversations that appear to be objective, people always push you into picking a side, and it's not necessarily true. The side is Kenya, and we're all Kenyans. And
yes, as Nerima's put it, we are really suffering from a lack of objectivity.
Exactly. She's put it so beautifully. It's about Kenya first. It's about ensuring that we understand that we are team Kenya, not team our ethnicity or team our political affiliation. We should ensure that we send a message of unity today, that even despite our differences, despite our ethnic differences, despite our political affiliations, this is our country, a beautiful country, a country that other Africans come to and love and adore. Why can't we do the same? Yes.
And something very interesting is the fact that we may not realize just how big of an impact the kind of crisis we are in right now, or the kind of prolonged electioneering period we have. But just reading the dailies this morning, even prisoners are suffering because they're not certain. Those who are hoping for presidential pardon, they're not certain it will happen today because of this debate on temporary incumbency of the president, and if at all it's temporary incumbency, then he cannot exercise the powers of mercy. So, and that happens on a day like this, on a public holiday. That's when the president declares some of these things. But the big question is, for how long will we stick in this electioneering mode?
I know. Because when you were talking about even the prisoners, it made me think of a friend of mine who's South Sudanese, and she was basically saying, you Kenyans are joking. You know, you keep pushing this election thing and not taking it very seriously. You should look at South Sudan and where we've gone. And instead of learning from that, you're completely oblivious to the importance or the impediment of the situation. But you know, when you talked about people suffering, Fred, not just prisoners. You know, the other day I was talking with my brother, and he had kidney chronic disease, and so he was visiting a friend of his in hospital, and there are no nurses or you know, and this boy,
and we totally forgot about nurses.
See, he's 21 years old, and there he is fixing his own dialysis machine.
Oh.
Yes. And this is a fact. This is happening this week. And then we're talking about students not being in school. We're talking about universities uncertain whether to leave them open. Some of them have closed. And so you're hearing a lot of young people coming and saying, so I'm paying these school fees, and then I'm being taught for a short period of time, but I have to pass and pay these fees. I mean, it's expensive. Yes. And then you're seeing kids out of school. They're out now.
Incidentally, even some schools are closing as early as Monday. I'm a parent. I've received that text. I've been told, yes, schools are closing on Monday. Just to ensure that you're away from school come election day. But yes, Kenyans are indeed suffering, Mary. It's no longer a joke. It's no longer just a kind of discussion you have and you move on.
I believe this is the time for us to now become introspective and ask ourselves, is this worth it? We have to start looking beyond our tiny little enclaves and remember that there are children who are about to do exams, that politics cannot be about zero sum. It must be about us having a system that will call for every single individual to feel that they have a share of the pie. That the kind of politics that we have will be the kind that will not be about I lose, you have taken it all, or I win and you have lost it all. We need to look at our politics beyond ethnicity. We want to have issues. There are places in this country that have never had hospitals. There are places in this country that have never had decent schools, decent access just to medical health care. Those are some of the issues that we now need to address as a nation, as a people. Even as voters, we need to look to leadership that will bring this. We also need to understand that county government is a very powerful platform for us to ensure that we have development trickling down to every single Kenyan. But we're forgetting that.
Yes.
And we're looking only towards the presidency as a winner takes all.
And that's the saddest thing, because when in the advent of devolution, we thought focus from central governments would change. Too much focus on the presidency, that Kenyans would pay more attention to their governors and their senators and their county assemblies, because that's where development should emanate from. But apparently we still don't understand that we're in a different system of government.
I think that we are gradually moving toward a shift, because we can see the effects of devolution in terms of, you know, some counties receiving their first road or even access to power. And those are the products of devolution. But then, yes, it's an interesting thing to see. And I think politically, if we even look at our history in terms of access to power because of it being a federal system, and the importance of that presidential seat is still there. But I want to say that in years to come, it's going to shift. It has to shift, because we're going to have fresh faces entering the political landscape, because we're talking about political regimes that have been there for decades, and we're going to have people who are concerned about issue-based politics. And as people become more educated, there are also issues that are rising, and people want their issues solved. Because when we talk about Kenya having over 40% of the population is youth and unemployed, these are real problems. And so it's not going to be solved by campaign rallies that are entertaining and engaging. People are going to want to see results, and people are going to start voting on that basis. So it's going to shift.
Mary, Mashujaa Day is a day when we commemorate the achievements made by the men and women who fought for our freedom, who shed blood, and other heroes. But at this point in time, we seem to be lacking that kind of spirit that existed in our heroes, that they could sort out issues of national importance. We seem to be lacking that. Everyone is about their own self-interest at this point. What happened to us?
Well, that would be an entire university thesis. But to just break it down as simply as possible, I believe that we've forgotten what it is we were fighting for. When we were fighting for our independence, we were coming out of a system where the colonial government wanted to create a settler government here. We were going the South Africa way. And because of that, people realized this is not going to be good for us as a whole, and we united, and that power of unity is what brought us into our independence. We have forgotten that, and it took just 1, 2 people, 3 people. I have a friend who keeps saying the power of one. If you look at 2,000 years ago, a man called Jesus Christ changed the world. You have that in different religions. One person standing up to the system and saying, I do not care. But it calls for a price, a major price.
It comes at a cost.
Yes. And there are a lot of people who will look back and say, but my family will be at stake. My people will be at stake. My entire integrity will be at stake. But we are calling upon those people today because we have them here. They just need to speak out, and others will rally behind them.
And even just if we could, that message by Mary, if it trickles down, even looking at the IEBC and the kind of predicament they are in right now, they also seem to be lacking in that. The kind of willingness to sacrifice. We've seen commissioners saying, hey, my life is in danger, I bolt out. The chairman is, according to his statement, is neither here nor there. We're not sure if he'll still be chairman come Thursday, election day. Generally, Kenyans are not really willing to sacrifice much, don't you think?
That's an interesting way of looking at it, because the way I see it, when we look at other countries, for instance, if there's a corruption charge on a commissioner, they resign. But we do the complete opposite. In fact, we're like, prove me, you know, guilty first and foremost, and then I will choose to resign. So we talk about investigations a lot. And what I'm trying to say is, as Kenyans, I think that we have this mentality that I can do it, even though at times we cannot. You know, you can have the plumber or the mechanic saying, you know, this thing, I can fix it, I know how to fix it, and then he comes and just does a terrible job at it. But are we those kinds of people who admit when times are in trouble, this situation right here, I am not able to handle it, and this is what I'm calling for assistance, or even for another institution to step in, and that's what I'm talking about with the IEBC, because we can see that there's been a lot of inconsistency, lack of transparency, and it looks really, really vague in many situations, and so it's worrying to the Kenyan people, because what message are you sending across? Because you cannot say that you have secured your house and your house is in order, and in a few days you're going to have an election that's credible. He has clearly said that he doesn't think it's going to be credible. So what action steps can we take forward? And a lot of people are afraid of having that conversation about an extension. What does that mean to us? Or about settling. What does that mean to us? And so when we look at the situation and think of Kenya as a whole, I think as Kenyans we lack that sacrifice in terms of I am willing to compromise, to come to a middle ground for the betterment of my country. Right now, everyone is standing still on their ground, and no one wants to move or negotiate and come to an understanding. Yeah,
of course, the equivalent of Mashujaa Day in English is Heroes Day. Can any of these commissioners be described as heroes? Even those who have stepped aside and said there's a problem, can that fit the description of a hero, Mary?
What hero pertains, what the meaning of hero is somebody who will sacrifice everything for the good of all, not just for themselves. As Narima pointed out, we're in a situation where as a people, as a nation, we're very comfortable with the status quo so long as we have the basics. I have my car, I can go to work, I'll get my salary, I'll take my family on a small holiday, and life goes on. But when we get to that point where we are about to lose everything, which is what happened when we were going towards independence. People realize people are dying, people are suffering. This cannot go on. And I believe we're reaching that point as a nation. This is a good thing because we're having these discussions. We're having discussions around what does it mean to be a nation? What does it mean to be Kenyan? I stand here with the last name that I have, but Team Kenya is me. That's what I represent. I do not represent my ethnicity. I do not represent, you know, my so-called ancestors. I was put here for a reason. And like Nerima pointed out earlier, we are diverse, but in that diversity comes greatness and beauty. Let us celebrate that.
Okay. Beautifully said. And in a short while, we'll be getting an update from Uhuru Park, Macharia Gashuru. Yes, I do understand we're ready for that update. Macharia, very good morning. Talking to us from Uhuru Park this morning. What's happening there?
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Macharia, give us an update from Uhuru Park this morning.
Very good morning to you, Fred, and indeed we're coming to you live from Uhuru Park. Now this is where today's, or this year's Mashujaa Day will be celebrated, and as it appears, not so many Kenyans have turned up in as far as this time is concerned, and of course we're waiting to see if Kenyans will be coming for these celebrations. And President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto are expected to arrive here anytime from 10 a.m. of course to lead the Kenyans in this year's Mashujaa Day. Remember last year these celebrations were held in Machakos, and this year will be held here in Nairobi as a way of what President Uhuru Kenyatta said is his commitment to evolution, and therefore he decided, rather he said these celebrations will be held in different counties, and therefore this year being held here in Nairobi County. And of course we're expecting maybe what we would call a platform for the Jubilee administration to campaign for itself ahead of the repeat polls that has been slated for Thursday next week, and therefore we'll be waiting to see, rather to hear what President Kenyatta and his deputy will be saying in as far as their election, rather their campaign towards the Thursday's repeat polls are concerned. And we also expect the NASA principals, rather the NASA brigade, to hold a parallel celebrations in countering what will be happening here today, and therefore this is interesting times that we're waiting to see what will be happening. And of course we're expecting to see, rather to hear what the Jubilee administration will be saying in as far as their achievements is concerned for the last 5 years, even as they seek the re-election on Thursday during their repeat polls. And therefore that is one of the things that the Jubilee administration could be, rather we might be hearing from the Jubilee administration once they arrive here. And this is a celebration that comes every year to remember Kenyans who contributed in different ways, not just for the freedom fighters, rather not just the freedom fighters, but Kenyans who contributed in different ways in as far as the Kenyan, where we are, in as far as where we are as a country. Remember last year President Kenyatta mentioned a few Kenyans who helped, or rather who contributed in the second liberation, the likes of Mother Karua, the likes of Otinde Amolo, and the others who contributed to the second liberation. Of course, remembering the Kenyan heroes who contributed in the freedom fight, the likes of Jomo Kenyatta, the likes of Linda Kagia, the likes of Ochieng Neko, and also Kenyans who contributed in pen, or rather who wrote articles and stories that motivated the freedom fighters, the likes of Henry Moria, the likes of Dennis Pitt and others who contributed to where we are as a country in terms of freedom. So we're expecting to hear more Kenyans being maybe recognized in terms of their contribution to the country. Also, we remember the nurses who helped in fighting Ebola in Liberia. The nurses who came from Kenya, and of course Kenyans who have contributed in different ways. And therefore we're expecting to hear the government will indeed recognize the Kenyans who have contributed in different ways in as far as where we are as a country. And therefore once President Kenyatta arrives and his deputy and the Jubilee administration, we will be expecting to hear what they will have to offer to Kenyans, even as they seek re-election. That is on Thursday during the repeat polls, which is just a few days, rather less than a week away. And of course, remembering that this is a period that has been having a lot of back and forth in terms of the preparations of the repeat polls, which the NASA brigade has vowed not to participate, rather to withdraw their candidature in terms of participating in that repeat polls. Fred.
Thank you, Masharia. Masharia Gashuru there live from Uhuru Park, where the main celebrations for Mashujaa Day will be taking place today. Quite an elaborate plan there. We do expect President Uhuru Kenyatta will be presiding over that event. At some point, Masharia's voice was being drowned by the music and the public address system there. Of course, everyone there getting ready for the big day. It is indeed a big day, and joining my panel this morning, Bishop David Oginde, presiding Bishop of Christ is the Answer Ministries. Good morning and karibu sana. We're just discussing the opportunity we have as a country. It's rare that we get this long weekend. It is one of those 3-day weekends. And it's coming at a very opportune time. But what kind of opportunity are we looking at? The country is at a crossroads. 5-6 days to the date set for the repeat presidential election. We look like we're in a serious political crisis, probably not a constitutional one, but a political crisis. But this could be an opportunity. We've been given a break, a 3-day break, to think about what we want. Bishop, what should we really be thinking about this weekend?
Well, I pray that it's actually a break, because, you know, politicians don't like breaks. They want to be always alive on our faces so that we don't forget them. So, but I pray that it will actually be a real break. This being Mashujaa Day is a day we remember those people who have fought for this nation to be where it is today. And my prayer is that we will also get some Shujaas on this day. People who can arise above personal interest to put the interest of the nation at heart and give us a very clear direction on where we ought to go. Because I can tell you that in the last 2-3 weeks, I've had opportunity to do what you call shuttle diplomacy, moving from this place to that place with different groups of people and meeting with all these people. And when you sit down with them, you find that they are very reasonable people. They are not ignorant. You know, sometimes we think they don't know that the nation is burning, the nation is in a crisis, what is going to be, what is likely to happen. When you sit down, they will articulate to you better than you actually know. So it is true that they actually know what should be done, the consequences of their actions. What is sad is that with that knowledge, because knowledge is one thing, what you do with the knowledge is what is called wisdom. So with that knowledge, I hope that on this Mashujaa Day, somebody can take a step of wisdom, a decision that is informed by the need to get the nation into a place where it is stable. And if indeed the elections, as already planned, are going to take place on 26th, that they take place in an environment where people can actually exercise their democratic right very freely and fairly. And that will require the men and women who are at the front to move beyond their personal interest. That's what the Shujaas did. You can't be a Shujaa when you're pursuing your own interest. And nobody has ever been a hero just by pursuing their own interest. That is not heroic. Anybody can do that. Even a baby cries for the milk. They can't be considered a hero.
And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a way out. And speaking to many Kenyans, it appears that we've resigned ourselves to the fact that, okay, fine, we do not have a solution. Let's just wait and see what happens. It's up to these guys, the ones in dispute. But should we really just sit back and wait for them to decide for us, Nerima?
Absolutely not. This is our country, and as much as we would like to feel that someone else can take care of it, this is something that we also educate young people on. No one is going to come and make Kenya prosperous. You are the Kenyans. So it's because of your hard work, your ambition, and your vision for the country is what makes Kenya a better place. So in moments like this is actually when we the people should be the loudest.
We the people.
We the people. We're the ones who have to say, okay, our leaders are not doing what we think is right. So where we stand, this is what we want as a people, and we hold our leaders accountable to that, because our leaders are there to represent us. And once they see that the people are united on something that they want for the country, they will listen to their people. But at the moment, we're just letting them do as they please. And unfortunately, I know so many people who are living in this bubble where they know what's happening, but they're going to behave as if they're not sure, and sort of just come out a little bit to hear what's happening in politics and then go back into that bubble. But we cannot continue living like that. And it's conversations that we have to have. As much as we're exhausted about it, it's not going to go away. We're the ones who have to make it and solve it. And that's what I think. And
now that we're discussing the description of heroes, or Mashujaa, I think we've given these politicians, or rather our leaders, too much leeway to decide what happens, even when we can clearly see that they're leading us to the wrong place, Mary.
But it goes back to what she just said, that bubble mentality, that it's not my problem, that I am living my life and I'm comfortable. I'm on air on Monday mornings on a Christian radio station, and what we discuss is politics and social justice issues. And we get a lot of backlash from individuals who say we shouldn't discuss these issues. This is a Christian radio station. We should not have that kind of discussion. But politics affects your everyday life. It will affect your access to healthcare. It will affect your access to quality education. So we need to tell people the time is nigh. You have the power as an individual, as a citizen, first and foremost, if you're eligible to vote in the right leader. Understand what their role is. A lot of people do not know that the MCA has a lot of power over their neighborhoods. People need to understand that and ensure that they vote in somebody who has actually lived in that environment, lived in that neighborhood, knows the issues on the ground, and will ensure that they will address those issues. So again, I go back to the power of one. I, as an individual, understanding what my role is as a citizen of this nation.
Is Mashujaa, it's not just about celebrating those people. It's a call on all Kenyans to rise up and become the hero for this country, and probably that's where the message, that's probably the message that we should give to the Kenyans. Bishop.
That's true. You know, heroes are not made in times when things are good. Heroes are made in times of crisis, in moments like this. And heroes are not made by appointment, where people sit down like you're hiring, and applications are invited and people come and say, I would like to be a hero. Heroes are people who step out of the crowd and do something that is extraordinary, that brings solutions to moments of crisis. And heroes are across gender, across age. Little children can be heroes in moments like this. A little child can say something or do something that totally brings the nation back to its senses. And that child becomes a hero and will be celebrated the world over. An old man, possibly waiting for his death, can say or do something that totally changes the environment and the things that people are saying. That person becomes a hero. So heroes are not just historical. They are also right now, and we are looking forward to seeing men and women who rise up in a situation like this and do something, say something that changes and transforms the thinking of people. Because on a day like this, we can be focusing on the past, but the past is only there to inform the future. If that past remains just history that we celebrate and that's it, then it doesn't make, it's not worth the resources that we are going to spend today. There's a lot of money that has gone in preparing for Mashujaa Day. So if it is only to look at the past and say how great these people are and what they did and so on, and then go back to our problems, then it's not worth it. Yes. We must do something about now and the future.
Nerima, can we describe, or is there any heroism to be gotten from stepping out of the limelight to ensure the country moves forward? Because there are people who've been called upon, please just leave. just leave so that we can move on. But they've insisted, I will not leave. And that famous, I will not resign, I'd rather die. We have a lot of that. Would someone be described as a hero if they chose to step away and allow the country to move on?
I don't think that we do, and it's not just Kenya, it's Africa. And if you think about whistleblowers in our own country, when it came to corruption issues, those are the people who are criminalized, or they're in asylum and they live in other countries. They're not even in Kenya anymore. But it's unfortunate because like this past week we were remembering Thomas Sankara's death, and we are good at praising African heroes when they're dead, not when they're still living. When he was living, nobody quite understood what he was trying to do for Burkina Faso. And it's the same with Patrice Lumumba or other country heroes that we look at in Africa. So I would say that we have to educate our young people in terms of who is a hero, because I'm going to be honest with you, I deal with a lot of young people, and for them it's about achieving success with finances. As long as they can get rich quick, that's all they're looking toward. It's not about someone who comes and helps the community and someone who's building the country. We do not praise that at all. So it's very hard to ask a population or a young people that you are not a hero if you do not serve your community. Those are some of the things that we need to talk about, to look at positive attributes.
And I'm really trying to avoid mentioning names here, but let me use myself as an example. If people saw Fred Ndimuli as an impediment to this country, and they demonstrated around town and said, this guy has to go. This guy has to go. Fred Ndimuli has to leave for us to move on. Would I be a hero if I decided to, just leave?
It depends on the circumstances. Fred needs to take a step back and understand what is it that has created this scenario. He also needs to understand why is it that people have gone to the streets. Sometimes Fred may not need to resign. He may need to come forward and explain why he is still where he is. Oh, I love using this analogy. But the point is, one needs to be able to communicate. People on the ground, the court of public opinion, may not be fully clear about why there is this clarion call for resignation. People need a clear message and told, this is what has happened, this is why it happened, and this is what we need to rectify. I feel that as a nation, as a people, we became very non-communicative at a time when it was not allowed, we were not allowed to communicate, and therefore we have carried on with that culture of keeping quiet. A child cannot raise their hand and tell the teacher, I do not think what you're doing is right. I can look at the textbook and see that this is what it's supposed to be. So we need to change that culture, and I'm happy that there are people who are articulating now to the younger generation and telling them, this is not the standard. The standard is so much higher. And therefore, Fred needs to communicate.
Okay.
Yes.
Bishop, do you agree that there's nothing to be gotten in terms of being a hero from just stepping away and deciding, okay, fine, if I'm the impediment, let me just leave? Because it's a problem, and I think, some people think if I leave, then I miss out on being declared a hero.
No, I think is it Kenny Rogers who sang and said that there are times to fight, there are times to walk away.
Yes.
Both are heroes. So it is knowing what is the right thing to do in this particular situation. If people are fighting you and you are right, but they are wrong, but they are insisting that you must resign or step aside, and you come out, explain your position, but say, in light of what is happening and for the sake of the nation, I will step down. We remember, all of us, many of us do, Professor George Saitoti. I think it's when there was a crisis with Kanu, And he said, there come a time, you know.
There come a time.
Yes, there come a time, you know. And he was quoted so many times because he stepped aside, or he stepped out at a time when it was, would say, it was his right to stay in there. But because he said there come a time when the interest of the nation is greater than the interest of the individual, everybody celebrated that. He may not be hero of Mashujaa, but he is on historical record of this nation that he did what ordinary politicians would not do in such circumstances. So stepping aside on principle is also heroic.
Yes. And I think we are lacking a lot in that most of the people in authority, most of the people we've given these positions are not willing to just say, if at all I am deemed to be a problem, I should probably take a break. And incidentally, and in very unrelated news, embattled election boss Ezra Chiloba is to take a 3-week leave, and he'll be away during Thursday's repeat of the presidential election. But should we say he's a hero by deciding to stay away?
Hero is then it's very easy.
I mean, the timing of it, you are involved in the whole process, so you stepping aside, does it really make a difference? Because you were part and integral of putting those foundations in place. So technically it's just not to be invisible, but you're still present. So I don't think that's considered stepping aside, in my view anyway. But I do want to bring up culturally, maybe we view stepping aside as weak, because even when Saitoti did that, a lot of people thought that he made a mistake during that time. It was understood decades later when now people look up to him and said, actually, in that moment he made the right decision. And so I think what we need to instill is a culture of, if you are an obstacle, an impediment, or even if within your own institution, I had mentioned earlier where if, for instance, there's a corruption charge in your own institution, you would step aside in other countries because you are the commander. We just saw something like that happen in Turkey, where Commander-in-Chief, she stepped aside because 4 people passed away in war away from her country. And so those are some of the things that it goes back to morals and ethics. If you're able to continue with your services, even though you know it's creating such a distraction for the rest of Kenyans, and you feel no inkling of making this, you know, kind of impact, then, you know, it means, are you really a person who has empathy, or do you feel, you know? And so that's quite something to
One of the
about.
biggest headlines this week has been the resignation of Commissioner Rosalina Kombe from the IEBC. Looking at social media, she's been widely criticized as being unpatriotic, that you do not love your country enough. But she feels she's doing the country justice. How would you describe that move by the commissioner in terms of hero? And that statement was very heavy. She said, if I do not do this now, I will not be doing justice to my country.
The confusion, I think, arises from the fact that on Friday she was giving a brief to the international community and the observers, basic structures that have been changed, that they have addressed some of the irreducible minimums, and that she was confident that the IEBC would conduct free, transparent, fair elections. So the complete turnaround is what people are not comfortable with. Had she not been part and parcel of that presentation to the international community, then maybe there wouldn't be this criticism. I do not want to label her at this point. We need to understand what is happening. There's a lot of innuendo going on, a lot of backlash online, and Kenyans feel, you know, they have to analyze this thoroughly and look at her from different perspectives in terms of ethnicity, her role. But I think as a nation we need to sober up as individuals who discuss these matters online, we need to sober up, because we need to understand that we need to verify a lot of the information that she has put out there. Then we can decide.
Bishop, do you think she abandoned us at the hour of need, or is she indeed a hero by actually coming out and saying there is a problem here?
You know, heroes, like has already been mentioned, people are not heroes sometimes at that very moment. It is after people have reflected, looked at the situation, gone back. Usually you find that it is, in many cases, heroes are celebrated actually after they have gone.
Yes.
Because that's when now people look back in hindsight and say, oh, we see what this was all about. But in the midst of this confusion, we don't have enough, the ordinary person, that includes me, I don't have enough information to be able to objectively analyze the circumstances under which she left, and whether it was the right thing or not, as far as the nation is concerned. As far as her own life, if what she said was correct, then as far as her own life is concerned, I would say, yes, she did the right thing. Because we do know that Musando died. So you can't just sit there when you're receiving threats to your life and your family and die for the nation, as it were. You know?
But is that kind of sacrifice the description we have of heroes?
There are sacrifices, Fred. If somebody enters here with a gun, don't tell me you'll sit there and defend.
I know all the exits. I know all the exits.
Yes, expect you to protect us, friends.
Exactly. But if the circumstances are such that there is no way of escape, and you confront these people, talk with them and try to do your very best for them not to destroy the studio and so on, and when everybody else has gone, then you become a hero. But if you just sit there and you are shot, you will not be a hero. We will say he's a fool, you know, because why did he run away? Why did he do something? How can you just sit there? So I think the sacrifice, I would say, like a person like Musando would be considered to have sacrificed his life, or his life was sacrificed, because he did what he was supposed to do. He had just given his statement as to the state of the ICT and so on and so forth. Some people maybe were not happy with that. As a result, he died in the course of duty. But if he knew that actually he is going to die, I doubt that he would have stood there and said, kill me, kill me. That is not, that's not heroic.
Yes.
So for me, I would say in their combat situation, there are two matters to look at. There is her own personal interest, which only her can explain. But there is the national interest, which we will only understand when we have the full picture. So for me, I would actually not be quick to say whether she's a hero or otherwise, because I do not have all the facts. The intrigues that seem to be going on in that commission, we will only know with the time.
Yes.
Because the chairman comes, like the statement he made, and he says, we are well prepared for this election.
Okay.
In the same breath, he says, we cannot deliver a credible election. Which one do we take?
Yes.
You know?
And looking at the chairman, it's very interesting, because we've had a previous chairman of the electoral agency, whether it was ECK or IIEC or IBC. With the history we have of Samuel Kivuitu, Isaac Hassan, now Wafula Chebukati, and we can see the kind of predicament. And even if we do not have enough information to actually describe someone as a hero or not, let's call it the potential of being a hero then. Chairman Wafula Chebukati, that position does not have a nice history of heroism. What do you think about his position this time?
Yeah, it's a difficult position to be in, because Chebukati has had to do it twice, you know, and starting off in January, and a lot of people were concerned about the short time period that this new team of commissioners were given, and we have trust issues. as Kenyans, even when it comes to voting. That's why our elections are so expensive, and we use this technology that, quite frankly, we cannot afford, but we will borrow to pay for it. And we do it because we don't trust in our own people counting it. We would rather rely on technology to let us know who won an election. So it's a difficult position to hold, and just like you've mentioned from past institutions, that position has always ended up either the individual being pushed out, resigning. It seems to be the story.
And really not described as a hero. I don't remember any of them being described as a hero.
To some, it depends who you're
talking to.
Yeah, it depends who you're talking to. The same way even with Roslyn, Dr. Roslyn Akombe, she's a hero to some. Yes. So it depends on
where you are.
Yeah, it does. It depends on who you're talking to.
So everything has come down to
relativity.
Yeah. It's split down the middle who we think is a hero, who's not.
I would say that Kivuitu, in my view, did the very best that was humanly possible in the circumstances. We did interact with him on the day just before the announcements were made, because we saw the siege under which he was in. And as religious leaders, we said, let's go and at least pray with this man. So we went and we talked with him, and he told us the circumstances under which he's operating and the things that are happening. Literally, he was trying to do his very best, but there was no support. Even just like Chebukati now, even from his own staff, you know. You can only do so much because you're a human being. You're not God. You don't know what other people are doing behind your back and everything. And that happens even in organizations. You can be the CEO, but your people are doing things behind your back. You only learn about it later, but you take all the blame. So for me, I would say Kivuitu was a very forthright person. He tried to do what was right. What people vilify him for is some of the statements he made. I don't know whether somebody is cooking somewhere, you know. But you see, those are the frustrations of a human being. You know, he was actually just expressing his frustrations. Because when we went to his office, he said, here is a file with 120% turnout. From a constituency. What do I do with it? Here is a place where I have not received results so many days after the elections. We have given them phones, we have given satellite phones, we have given choppers, we have told them, do anything to get these results here. We can't get any report from those sessions. What am I supposed to do?
Yes.
You know, so you find that in our elections, like she has said, is a do and die, and what you see is not what the reality is. Reality is happening behind the scene that you may not be aware of. So an ordinary human being in that position, you need God.
Yes. And if at all you want to be a hero in Kenya, don't become the IEBC chairman.
I would argue that it's very heroic to even accept that position. But
just accepting the post,
yes, that in and of itself is utterly heroic. But one must also understand that it's a winner-takes-all scenario for our election process. And when we move away from that winner-takes-all is when we will see changes, where we will see county government being able to function. We will see people not so bothered about who the president is, but more bothered about who their governor is, who their MP is, who their senator is. That is where we want to take Kenya. We want to move away from that winner, high-stakes sort of game where elections are concerned.
Yes. But yes, you do agree that some positions in this country have the potential of ensuring you never become a hero. We've had an issue with the ESCC chairman. IEBC chairman now more and more looks like one of those positions you do not want to take. Let's now take a break. When we come back, we continue with this conversation on Mashujaa Day, a very auspicious occasion when we celebrate the heroes of Kenya.